Alliance Inside is just around the corner, and with it comes a new archetype called Regenesis that will challenge the current Yu-Gi-Oh meta. So today we're going to analyze how Regenesis works, different ways to play the deck, and why it may find more success in the TCG than it did in the OCG.
Like, they go to the grave, they add themselves back, they summon themselves back for free. Yeah, like, this is really good.
Imagine Kashtira 5.0.
Like, this is one of those instances where every single one of these cards is actually good.
So, Regenesis is built on a main deck focused approach and revolves around monsters with 2500 attack and defense. The archetype's first wave is made up of 8 cards that bring a wide set of tools to the table. The first one we're going to take a look at being Regenesis Archfiend Bemidbar, which is a level 8 Earth Fiend monster. It can be special summoned by simply revealing another monster with 2500 attack or defense, and on summon it can search for any Regenesis card, making it a pretty good starter. Also, if it is sent to the graveyard during your opponent's turn, you can add it to your hand during the end phase, which is an effect that most Regenesis monsters share. Regenesis Dragon Vaikra is a level 8 Wind Dragon monster. To special summon it, there simply has to be a monster with 2500 original attack or defense on the field, which can be a Regenesis monster or something like a Ryzeal Detonator, and of course this also counts if it is on your opponent's side of the field. Vaikra has a quick effect that allows you to tribute itself to banish a spell or trap your opponent controls. When you activate this effect on your opponent's turn, this in turn enables its other effect to return to your hand in the end phase, so as the name Regenesis already indicates, this deck has some pretty good recursion. Regenesis Warrior Bear Sheet. The next one on the list is a level 7 Fire Warrior. It can also be special summoned if a monster with 2500 attack or defense is on the field, and with its quick effect you can bounce an opponent's monster by tributing your Bear Sheet. It will not be gone for long though, as it is also able to return to your hand if sent to the graveyard during your opponent's turn. Now, Regenesis Sage Shemot. It is a level 7 water spellcaster, and similar to Vaikra and Bear Sheet, it can be special summoned if a monster with 2500 original attack or defense is on the field. Shemot has a quick effect Omni Negate that destroys the negated card, but unlike Vaikra and Bear Sheet, it requires you to send another Regenesis card from your hand or field to the graveyard in order to activate this effect. However, this is not too bad because of the deck's recursion. Speaking of recursion, Shemot can also return during your opponent's end phase if sent to the graveyard during the same turn. Alright, Regenesis got Deuteronomion. The boss monster of the archetype is a level 10 Light Illusion and can be special summoned by banishing one face-up monster with 2500 attack and defense, which could basically be any Regenesis monster, and additionally, it inflicts piercing battle damage and during the battle phase only gains 2500 attack. Unlike the other monsters, it does not have any built-in recursion, but on summon it sets a Regenesis spell or trap, so let's have a look at what it can set. The first spell card of the archetype is a normal spell, which is called Regenesis. Regenesis is a Rhoda with some extra utility and allows you to search a Regenesis monster, but if you already control one, you can add a monster with 2500 attack and defense to your hand instead, which may sound super generic, but one look through the database later and you will come to the conclusion that it's probably better to stick with adding Regenesis monsters. We're not done yet though, except during the turn it was sent there, you can banish it from your graveyard to special summon a Regenesis monster. This means that if you have a Regenesis monster lying around in your graveyard, which for whatever reason you could not add back with its own effect, be it due to it being sent to the graveyard during your own turn or your opponent negating the effect to add itself back, you can get your resource loop back into rotation. And as if that wasn't enough, With Regenesis Tora, the archetype offers yet another powerful spell card. Tora is a quick play spell E-Tally for Regenesis monsters and also the engine's only one card starter. Such a powerful effect doesn't come without a cast though, which is why, after the effect resolves, you cannot special summon from the extra deck until the end of the next turn, which is not the end of the world, as you can either activate Tora after you finish comboing or set it to get another disruption out of your deck during your opponent's turn. Just like the Regenesis normal spell, Tora also offers some amazing grind game utility, allowing you to, except during the turn it was sent there, banish itself from the graveyard to special summon a banished Regenesis monster. Therefore, even if your opponent banishes a Regenesis monster, it will not be gone forever, making the resource loop continue. To round up the card introduction, let's take a look at what the archetype has in store in terms of trap cards. Regenesis Birth, a continuous trap card that allows you to send a Regenesis monster to the graveyard for cast in order to Book of Moon an opponent's monster. As most Regenesis monsters return from the graveyard to your hand if sent there during your opponent's turn, this card complements the archetype's playstyle pretty well. The second effect of Regenesis Birth is yet another powerful recursion effect, allowing you to send itself to the graveyard during your opponent's turn to special summon as many Regenesis monsters with different names as possible from your hand, graveyard and/or banishment. They're sent to the graveyard during the end phase, although let's be real, this is not too much of a downside. Alright, now that we have looked at all the cards, a few quick conclusions based on what we have seen so far. The Regenesis archetype is centered around main deck monsters with 2500 attack and defense that come with pretty powerful effects. Also, pretty much any game that makes it past turn 2 will likely be decided in favor of Regenesis due to their insane grind game capabilities. Well, while that sounds pretty promising so far, how can we make the most out of Regenesis? The first deck we're going to talk about is Ryzeal Regenesis. The Ryzeal engine is one of the best engines in the current metagame, securing large amounts of the top cut spots at every major event since its release. It is very resilient into hand traps and can win going second, so how does it pair up with Regenesis? Combining Ryzeal with Regenesis seems like a pretty good fit, as all of the Regenesis disruptions come from the main deck, which means that you don't really care about the rank 4 luck. So how would I build the deck? For the Regenesis engine, I would go with 3 Bemidbar, Tora and Regenesis, as they will get your Regenesis engine rolling, and 1 Shemot as well as 1 Bear Sheet to minimize bricky hands. I decided not to play Deuteronomion, as it is not a card I would want to draw nor search off of Bemidbar, as there are much better targets, and the only time it may come in handy is for OTKing, which is not reason enough for me to include it. Vaikra is not in the list as of right now, but depending on how the meta changes, I could definitely imagine myself putting it in the side or even main deck. Regenesis Birth is in my side deck due to it being pretty much useless going second, but I think if you go first, it is a crucial piece of interaction assisting you in winning the grind against your opponent. Regarding the Ryzeal part, I've been playing around with the ratios quite a lot, but I must say the ban list has really simplified the task, as of right now I'm pretty sure that it's just correct to max out on all the good names, so 2 Sword, 2 Axe, 2 Ice, and I'm also playing 1 Node. For the searchers, I went with 2 7th Tachyon and 1 Bonfire to increase the overall consistency, and also all of the normal search spells I play within the deck, like the Regenesis search spell or the aforementioned Ryzeal search spells, synergize very well with the thrusts in the side. Then, how do we solve the issue of drawing dead Bemidbars? For that reason, I also put Volcanic Queen, which has 2500 attack and a Banshee, into the deck. The basic idea is that if you do not draw a 2500 attack monster with Bemidbar, The Ryzeal part of the deck can get the Volcanic Queen to allow you to summon the Bemidbar. Volcanic Queen seems like the best 2500 stat card you could add with a rank 4, as it also has some additional utility which allows you to summon it to your opponent's field by tributing a monster they control. The Bystials further bolster the 25 stat count within the deck, and in the side deck I also played Dragon's Mind. The rest of the deck is nothing too special, so yeah, not really anything to go over. Having the right ratios is exceptionally important in this deck because of the Bemidbar issue I just explained, so let's look at the draw probabilities. I generated test hands of 5 cards for this deck until I had a sample size of 1 million hands that contain Bemidbar. Then I went ahead and did the same thing for Regenesis, which you would usually use to search for Bemidbar. The probability of drawing Bemidbar with at least one of 11 desired cards made up of 2500 stat monsters, also including additional copies of itself, and Regenesis sits at around 72.37%. For Regenesis, the probability of drawing itself with one of the 9 2500 stat monsters comes out at around 67.79%, as another copy of itself wouldn't work due to it being a hard once per turn. But if we also count our 9 ways into Banshee to search for Volcanic Queen, we're at more than 94.76% for Bemidbar and 93.37% for Regenesis, which obviously sounds a lot better. Let's have a look at a basic combo for when you draw extant Bemidbar. We first up special the X by dumping Eclipse Twins, then used our X to search for Sword, special Sword and search for Ice. Then go into Banshee with X and Sword, grab Volcanic Queen using Banshee's effect. We then reveal Volcanic Queen to special summon Bemidbar, search for Shemad and special it, which gives us nip protection on summon number 5. Then use Ice to special summon Note, use Note effect by sending Banshee to special Sword, and it's important we send the Banshee here so we can enable the twins of the Eclipse. Finally, we make a detonator and attach the twins. So by using 2 cards in our hand, we get a detonator with twins attached, an Omni and follow up due to the Regenesis cards returning to our hand in the end phase. To sum it up, I think the deck is pretty decent. It's nice that you can add a 2500 stat monster, but of course it would be even better to have a main deck inherently focused around 2500 statted monsters. Which is why I want to show you this next deck. The Bystial Fiendsmith deck is nothing new in the TCG, having secured top spots at events with Christian Urena going undefeated with it at YCS Birmingham up until top 32. While the Bystial and the Fiendsmith engine are already known for their strong grind game, adding Regenesis into the mix basically accelerates it. Not only will Regained keep on drawing cards, but you will also fill your hand with Regenesis monsters during each of your opponent's end phases. In addition to that, you will be able to put up a stronger and more resilient board. Looking at the deck, I still play the same ratios of Regenesis cards, except that I decided to go with only 2 Tauras. The Fiendsmith portion is pretty basic, although as of right now, I decided against playing more Lacrimas in the deck to include more 2500 statted monsters. This is something I may change in the future, as Lacrima is a pretty strong normal summon that is also super decent into hand traps. For the Bystial package, I basically maxed the engine out, as they all have 2500 attack, and I also think that Fiendsmith will be pretty prevalent in the upcoming meta, which in turn makes Bystials a lot better. However, if you face a deck that is not weak into Bystials, you may find yourself drawing too little useful non-engine, which is an issue that this deck may have. Looking at some extra deck choices, the M7 is really good in this deck, as it can get back your Regenesis monsters that you may not have been able to recycle. I also play Ryzeal Lars due to it having 2500 attack, which can help with awkward hands where you only draw Bear Sheet, for instance. And also, it negating a face-up card is still a powerful effect. The rest of the deck is once again nothing too special, with the main deck coming out at 40 cards and the side deck being the exact same as for the Ryzeal Regenesis deck. I also calculated the probabilities for this deck, again based on 1 million test hands. Drawing a live Bemidbar comes out at 91.9%. For Regenesis, the probability of drawing it with a 2500 stat monster is around 90%. So my conclusion on the deck, I think it fits the Regenesis engine very well, due to all of the engines being great at grinding. So if there's a lot of Fiendsmith running around, I would go with this deck. If not, I would stick with the Ryzeal variant. As time is limited, I could not try out all the other engines that synergize with Regenesis, so some honorary mentions include Voiceless Voice, White Forest, Kashtira and Asamina. When using a Kashtira package, you could for instance put it in a deck like the Bystial Fiendsmith Regenesis deck, replacing some of the Bystials with unicorns to still have the same amount of 2500 statted monsters, and then add like one Fenrir and one Birth to it. The only thing you need to be careful with when slotting such a lot of different engines into the deck is that it doesn't get too clunky, because your Regenesis engine already takes up a lot of main deck space. So to sum things up, what do I think of Regenesis in the TCG and why did it not succeed in the OCG? I think this deck is pretty neat, with its main benefit of course being its amazing recursion, but also how well it plays into Mulcharmy for Wallows. The engine still has its problems though, as you need a 2500 monster in your hand to even get Bemidbar out on the field, and also Regenesis being a main deck focused engine, which means that you may find yourself having less space for non-engine, or in the Ryzeal variant for instance, drawing only Regenesis cards at times, causing you to make Shemot pass, hoping you'd survive the turn. The reason it is still more likely to succeed in the TCG than in the OCG is that we have access to way more of the better 2500 monsters, such as Bystials or Kashtira Unicorn. My final conclusion, based on analyzing the engine for quite a bit now, is that it is a really decent engine, but Fiendsmith still takes the spot as the #1 engine. Fiendsmith offers way more versatility, with basically any two monsters being full Fiendsmith combo, while for Regenesis you have to hard draw either Tora or Bemidbar and a 2500 monster, which simply can't hold up to the standards that Fiendsmith has set.